Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Diva Marani from the Physics Education Study Program. Here I will discuss the graphic media of relationship in physical phenomena. The first material about relationship between mass and force. If the mass of an object increases, the force required to provide the same acceleration will also increase. In other words, the greater the mass of an object, the greater the force required to move the object with the same acceleration. So, in the table, we will have two columns. The first column will contain the mass values, while the second column will contain the force values associated with the mass. Each row in the table will represent one different observation or condition. In the example table to the side, we can see that as the mass increases, the force also increases proportionally. For example, when the mass is 1 kilogram, the associated force is 10 Newton. When the mass becomes 2 kg, the force increases to 20 Newton and so on. By using table and graphs, we can easily see and understand the relationship between mass and force in physical phenomena. The second material about relationship between distance and time. In the table example above, we can see that every second of time passed, the distance covered also increases. For example, when the time is 0 seconds, the distance traveled is 0 meters. However, after 1 second has passed, the distance traveled becomes 5 meters. And after 2 seconds has passed, the distance traveled becomes 10 meters and so on. So the relationship between distance and time in physics is directly proportional, meaning that the longer the time, the greater the distance traveled. Explanation of tables and graphs for distance and time travel relationship in physical phenomena will vary depending on the type of movement being observed. However, the general principle remains the same, namely that change in the time will affect change that occur in the distance traveled. The third material about the relationship between voltage and electric current. In the example table above, we can see that the higher the voltage applied to the resistor, the greater the current flowing. For example, at a voltage of 2 volt, the current flowing is 0.5 A. However, at a voltage of 10 volt, the current flowing is 2.5 A. Explanation of table and graphs for the relationship between voltage and current in physical phenomena will vary depending on the type of component or phenomenon being observed. If the voltage is constant, then the current in the circuit is inversely proportional to the circuit. However, if the resistance increases, the current will decrease, and if the resistance decreases, the current will increase. The next material about the relationship between speed and distance traveled. For example, if we want to study the relationship between the speed of a car and the distance it travels, we can create a graph table as follows. In this table, each row represents one data point. For example, at a speed of 60 km per hour, the car has traveled a distance of 120 km. Relationship between distance and speed, distance traveled requires speed. If the speed is 0, it is said to be at rest. So distance and speed are related. The faster the speed, the faster the distance. The next material about the relationship between time and velocity. In the table, the time 1 is the velocity 12. So relationship between speed and time, the greater the speed, the smaller the time required. Conversely, if the speed is smaller, the time required will be greater. The next material about the relationship between temperature and heat. For example, if we want to study the relationship between temperature and heat when changing the temperature of an object, we can create a graphic tables as follows. In this table, each row represents one data point. For example, at a temperature of 10 degrees Celsius, the amount of heat transferred to the object is 100 joules. In general, the temperature will increase if it absorbs heat and decreases if it releases heat. The longer the heating takes, the greater the heat received by the water and the higher the water temperature. Maybe this is where I can explain the material about media graphic in physics phenomena. Thank you all. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.